Live.
Okay, seems like we're live, and we're broadcasting live um, from Nearsoft's Mexico City office, and this is the Dojo Live talks. And we today we have a special guest, Michael Dunham. He is the vice president of services engineering and principal consultant and at SCIO Consulting. And I'm gonna let Michael introduce himself further in detail, but I'd like to mention that Michael does have a lot of experience in bringing technology to bear on business needs and innovation. And also he's has experience in business planning, project planning, and he's also well versed in management of culturally and technically diverse teams. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of things that I could mention about Michael and what his expertise, but I'll let him do the talking. And oh, by the way, before we start the talk, I'd like to mention this to our audience. Please remember that while we're broadcasting live, you can ask questions on the QA window that you're going to see. It's going to appear right there on your screen. And also, you can the way you do it is, in case you haven't visited our YouTube channel, there's an option for you to just click in there and interact with us, sending us your Q&A answers. Or if you're at Nearsoft, then you can always Skype me. So either way, please feel free and ask away. All right, so Michael, they're all yours.
Well, thank you, Carlos. I just want to say briefly, work for SCIO Consulting, as Carlos said. I'm in Morelia, Mexico, in the state of Michoacan. And so I'm about 4 hours west of Mexico City, almost due west. And we're a smaller company. We're probably about 50 developers. We're fairly specialized in what we do because we work on a lot of problems that we feel probably have found their way to us because others couldn't quite handle them. And soft skills, which is what we're going to be talking today, is part of the reason we're able to do that. It's part of what we push as a way for our team members to be more active, to have more to go on, and to work with throughout their career. So what are soft skills? Well, there's a lot of ways you can look at this. And if you look around on the internet, you're going to see a lot about it. But let's just talk about it from a point of view of software development. That's what the business we're in. That's what we're trying to do. If you think about software application development and the projects that we get involved in, it's really important for all of us to be involved enough to know the big picture. What are we trying to accomplish here? What are our outcomes trying to be? If we all have that idea, then it really is important that everybody understands that goal, whatever the big picture is. What does the customer see as their outcome for this? And every team member, that means you, feels enabled to be able to ask questions, to be able to participate and achieve that goal. Because if you don't achieve it, what's going to happen? Project's not going to be successful. We won't get what we're looking for. And that happens too often. It's one of the things that happens quite a bit in projects that people operate in completely different day cycles. So you're in the day and your customer is in your night. You're throwing things over the wall and you don't really know whether the other side is getting what they expect or not. It's hard to know. And it takes a whole nother cycle to get caught up if we're really out of sync. So thinking about that, then step back a little bit more and say, does any project we start as software developers ever end up exactly like we thought it would when we started? Almost none that I'm aware of. Almost always during the development of a project, The customer looks at what's happening, and hopefully this is before the end of the project, and says, oh, gee, that's a little different than I thought. But you know what? We could do this. When they say that we could do this, that creates some problems from a project management point of view, because then we have to start to think about, okay, how does that change the scope of what we're trying to do? But it also creates some problems from what we've already done. You know, do we have to change what we've done? Do we have to realign our thinking? Because most of us in this conversation, I think, work as agile teams. That's what we're there for. That's what we are able to do if we're really thinking about it, is make changes as things go along. That's part of the promise of agile. But if we're not able to communicate, to negotiate how that change is going to happen, to work with the client as closely as possible, then it just becomes lost opportunities. Oh, well, that's nice, you want to do that, but that's not in the plan. Let's go on. For most of us, that's really not a good outcome. So when this gap begins to develop, we have to have ways as individuals, as team members, to talk about how that's going to work and talk about how we're going to reach an outcome that the client really is looking for. So what does that involve? It involves soft skills. It involves saying, okay, we're going to communicate what the outcome of this change in the project might be. We're going to negotiate about how we're going to realize that change. We're going to solve problems creatively. We're going to say, okay, well, you want to do that. We were doing it this way. Let's see if we can find a creative way to solve that problem and not restart the project. That would be a real bad thing. Also, we have to have enough strategic idea of where this project is going to say, okay, doing that fits in this way, and maybe that changes some of the other things we had planned to do, but I see where we're going and we'll find ways to align things. All of those things, that communication, negotiation, creative problem solving, and strategic thinking, are really what makes a project work. Those are the soft skills that we all need. But there's one thing more. We can't do it as individuals. We have to do it as team members. This whole team context is really critical, because if we don't use a team context, what happens is you're the one person saying, oh, well, I think we should do it this way. And everybody else goes, yeah, sure. And it never gets communicated, even if it's a good idea. It doesn't come out. It doesn't bubble up because nobody's supporting it. Now, thinking about that, let's back up just a little bit and ask another question. Is the role of a project manager or a team lead in a project a soft skill? In itself, no. Because particularly when you think about larger projects, the project manager has got a lot of administrative tools. Maybe they've got assistants to get things done. It becomes more administrative than it is really a skill of any sort. It's more a process. And if you think about it, then the really good project manager and project leads in the kind of teams that most of us have in the agile world are the guys or the gals who are really involved, who really know what is going on. In fact, most of them are developers or QAs in the project. They're actually involved in the project. They're not sitting outside somewhere. And in that sense, they have to work with the team. They're involved in the daily stand-up. They're involved in every aspect of everything. And they should be in direct communication with the client so that they can make changes and do things and communicate them to the team, get support, understand what's going on. So in that respect, a project manager role is not a soft skill, or a team lead is not a soft skill, but it involves somebody who really understands soft skills and can leverage them, can use them. can use them successfully to work with the team and deal with the things that are going to happen in a project. Being able to do that makes a lot of difference. But one of the subjects of this discussion was to say, okay, soft skills sounds great. I'd love to be able to communicate better. I'd love to be able to even do some negotiation about how things are done, and even within the team, even if I don't do them with the customer. Then, okay, where do they come from? They fall out of the sky? Do we suddenly get touched and we have them? No, of course not. The whole point is they come from personal experience. And that means you got to put yourself in the way of dealing with problems. You got to step out there and start doing things. Yeah, you're going to make some mistakes, but we learn from mistakes. That's how we do it. That's how, as humans, we learn to do things better. If you think about riding a bike, you didn't read a book to ride a bike. You got on a bike and fell off a few times, hopefully less than more. But it's that falling off that teaches you, oh, I shouldn't do that. I should do this instead, and I'll go forward. So it requires, if you're working in a team, that everybody's aware that failure is part of the process of learning. And if we're going to communicate and we don't communicate quite the way we think we should, we don't put somebody down for it. We talk to them and say, well, maybe we could have said it this way. Or maybe it would have been better to give a little background, a little context, something like that. Those kind of things help you deal with failure. And then you should be able, as a person, to reevaluate and say, okay, I'm going to change. I'm going to evolve. I mean, I'm sitting here because I've spent my whole career in personal evolution. It sounds strange. I haven't become a lizard or anything strange, but that's exactly what you have to do as a person in this business. You have to continue to grow. You have to continue to change and make things happen. And so if you can't work with that kind of change, it's going to be very hard to advance in your career, because you're not going to be able to do the negotiation, to communicate your ideas, to get a team to come along with you and collaborate on what the best thing to pass forward is. I hope that kind of makes sense, but let's just think about it for a second. Let's say that we've got a problem. We're in a team, an average agile team, maybe 5 or 6 people. And we do have a problem. And maybe you're the smart one who saw this problem first. Okay, what are you going to do? First, you got to be sure you understand the situation, right? I mean, you need to ask somebody some questions. Maybe other members of your team. Do you see this? Does it make sense? But you can't ask it that way. One of the biggest things you learn in consulting is when to ask yes and no questions, and when to ask open questions. Questions you can't answer with just a yes or no. Because what happens then? Well, if I ask Carlos now a question like, what are you going to have for dinner? He can't answer yes or no. He's got to answer, well, I'm going to have whatever he's going to have, quesadillas or whatever. And it begins to give me some information. And if I ask it right in context, I say, where are you going? What are you going to have for dinner? I begin to get some idea of what Carlos does and where he's going tonight and that kind of thing. Then I begin to have a better picture. So this is gathering information, assessing the situation. It's not asking yes or no, because that means I've already made a decision. I've said, well, I think he's going to do this, so I'll just ask him if he's going to do this or not. I won't get any context. I won't get any information. I'll just get a yes or no answer to the question I've already made a decision about. You've also got to be able to then document this, to write it down. And you got to be able to research other resources. I mean, maybe Carlos is going to someplace in Mexico City where I know there's a better place just down the street. Maybe I suggest something better to him. If I do that, then I need to either have some research or really know and not just be throwing out ideas, because Carlos is not going to listen to me anymore if I say that. So these are the kind of things we have to do. We have to gather information openly, analyze that information, document it, record how we reached that analysis, and while we're at it, include everybody who's working with us. I might pre-work this idea that I have that there's something wrong or that there's something needs to be changed. I might pre-work the idea a little bit, but at some point sooner than later, I got to bring Carlos in and say, hey, where have you gone to dinner recently? What kind of things do you like? Those kind of things, and not just be suggesting things out of the blue to him. And then if Carlos begins to understand that I'm looking out for his welfare here, maybe he will be more willing to accept some of these ideas I have. That's the whole thing here. And these are all, by the way, what? Soft skills. It's communicating. It's thinking about what it is the other person is looking for, and not just thinking about it, asking open questions so you find out. We develop those conclusions. We get the team on board so that everybody is in the same point of view. And then from there, we're ready to present. Now, what's going to happen in getting to that point of view? We're going to have to change some things. That original idea you had is going to have to meld and morph because, hey, that other person has got some experience. That other person has got points of view. And by the way, they could be better than yours. But you've done the right thing by bringing it forward. So we'll present it. Hopefully we'll gain acceptance. And then we'll document results and move on. But it just like Agile itself, it's an iterative process. We can go back, look at what happened and say, did that really work or should we have done something better? But this is just using soft skills. So that's like the 20-minute version of what soft skills are all about. If you're able to do this, it's great. It's a great thing. I can't hear you, Carlos. I think you're talking.
I was talking, but I was on mute. So sorry about that. It always happens. I wanted to ask you something. If I ask you, what can you do with soft skills? I mean, if someone comes to you and bluntly asks you, what can you do with soft skills? I mean, amaze friends at parties, for example, or what?
Well, I imagine you could amaze people at...
Be the smart one when a problem happens?
Well, hopefully that isn't what actually happens. Hopefully you're able to be a stronger member of the team. You're able to feel like you're actually accomplishing things. And by the way, actually be able to step in and take a real role in what's going on in the team. One of the things that happens a lot is that, you get frustrated. You sit back there, gee, I see a different way to do this, and I think it'd be a lot better, but I really don't feel comfortable talking about it. I really don't feel comfortable stepping forward. I sure don't feel comfortable going to the client on my own. I got to find a way to make this work better, or I'm just going to spend time tossing and turning at night every night. And that kind of situation, I think, is what we're all trying to avoid. And by the way, if we're able to do it right, what happens? You start making the team better, you start being on the better team, and your own position looks better. It's better for you, it's better for everybody. But that doesn't mean you want to be the smart guy like you were saying. It means you want to be the guy who knows how to communicate, that helps get things done, that works collaborative with everybody. Have you heard the definition of collaboration, Carlos? What do you think it is?
Well, basically, it's about converging in a single point towards one single goal, and so mutual efforts in convergence towards one single goal in the horizon. That will be my personal take on that.
Well, the one thing about it, though, that you got to remember is it's finding an answer we can all live with. Not the perfect answer, Not the answer you necessarily believe in, but the answer that we as a team all can dance around and say, that's a good outcome. That's an outcome we can all live with. That's a little different because what it indicates is collaboration is not a kumbaya moment. It's a moment when we all say, this will work. We can move forward with that. Even though we don't get everything we want at this particular moment, we know there's a way to make this happen. We know there's a way for us as a group to come together on something, push it forward to our management, whatever, and make positive change. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It certainly does. And which kind of leads me into coming up with a second question or second concept that I would like your opinion on. Yes, well, we are talking about soft skills very evidently. So just like there's day and night, there's soft skills and hard skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hard skills involve and entail things that you can measure, things that you can prove, like, I don't know, 6 years of experience in .NET, whatever. So it's something that you can objectively...
A better way to use Angular.
Yeah, there you go. I guess that some of the folks here are going to relate to that, and things like that. So, in terms of if you take the dynamic duo of hard skills and soft skills, and how does one measure against the other when it comes to hiring people, when it comes to adding people to your team in order to achieve company goals as a whole? How would you tackle that part? I mean, which is more relevant or for the industry as a whole, not just for one company, but for the industry as a whole, and looking towards the future, which one is more relevant? Soft skills, hard skills, or what is it?
There's one soft skill that is critical. It's critical in this business because it is self-guided learning. Because this business is constantly, the technical side, the hard side is constantly changing. Yesterday's great technology is poop tomorrow. And yesterday's great way of doing things, putting together some modules and handling some things may not be the fastest, best way tomorrow. But we've got to be able to say, okay, what I'm doing is good enough, but not good enough forever. So as a person, I've got to enforce on myself, I'm going to learn new things. I'm going to try new things in my own time, on my own way. If I was hiring and I had someone who had a fair handle on soft skills, but maybe didn't know everything, but really was passionate about learning and really was passionate about knowing things, that would make all the difference, because that person, that curiosity will continue to drive them forward.
There you go. You mentioned curiosity, which is kind of interesting because in one of the coaching sessions that I mentioned, we talked about soft skills, and curiosity was one of them. So it's a funny thing that you bring it up. I'd like to take just a moment to ask our audience if you have any questions for Michael. Please, now is the time. So just click on the be part of the conversation option right there on the lower left-hand side of the player, and just ask your answer, and it'll appear right here. Or you can Skype me if you're in Nearsoft, or if you're listening, if you have me on Skype, also you can Skype me your question. By all means, okay? So at any given time, then I'll just read it for you, and then Michael will respond.
And if you don't ask questions, we're just going to sit here jabbering, and you don't want that.
Yeah, and drinking coffee and such, just filling up space. Yeah. So, guys, well, now's the time. So think about questions. Why are soft skills important for your professional advancement, or why do you think that soft skills could be more relevant than hard skills, if that's the case from your standpoint? So whatever it is, feel free to ask away right now, and we'll cover them here in this talk. Okay, Michael, let me go back to you. Do you have anything? I mean, would you like to add something? I was kind of wondering, is in terms of chronology, if we go back, say, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, in then young technology companies, and why?
You're hurting me, Carlos. I
Yeah,
was
no,
there.
I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. That was not the intention. That was not at all.
But you were
Hey,
too.
well, yeah, I still remember the punch cards, so that kind of
Yeah.
makes me an old timer as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in terms of that, I mean, why were soft skills? Is this something like recent? Is this a new trend, or is it a discovery? And why is a lot of people in the technology world talking about soft skills? Why are they bringing it up until now, and why didn't they bring it up 30, 40 years ago? What has changed?
It's actually a good point because a long time ago, back in the days of the little wooden computers, um, we had to be investigative. We had to try new things. We had to jump in where others would not go because the simple fact is, if you didn't, there was nothing for you in technology. The first technical company I worked in, we were building testers for jet engines. But by the way, we were doing it with trash 80s, TRS, Texas Instruments, uh, Tandy Radio Shack, 80s, and we were doing printouts on what am I trying to say? Travel agencies, printing machines that used great big belts to do the printing, belt printers. So it was it was really, you had to learn. You had to get involved. We don't have to do that as much as we did unless we force ourselves to do it.
Okay. Michael, we have a question here by one of the audience, by Cuauhtemoc Haman. He says, well, it's if you, I think you can see it, right? But if you can't, I'll just read it out loud. In Nearsoft, we as developers interview candidates, which is good, but we normally focus on finding out if they have hard skills.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, Timo. It is a problem, and you know what? Interviewing for soft skills is really tough. It is something harder to do than almost anything. What we try to do, and what I think the industry tries to do more often, is to have a period where a person, particularly if they're signing on as a mid-level or senior level, uh, where they begin to work in teams and you have a chance to assess them before you give them a final level. That's a little bit tough to negotiate because if you can't tell the senior guy, okay, you're a senior guy and you're hired as a senior guy tomorrow, that may kind of throw them. But also, you have to think about it as the senior guy. You need to prove yourself at some point, or you're going to spend a month and not learn anything.
Okay. Hey, thank you. Michael, here we have another one. You see, it's right there, and he says, what can we do to find out more about the soft skills of candidates? I think you kind of were briefly mentioned it or on the
Yeah,
surface, but if you can
yeah.
elaborate a little bit, we will appreciate it.
There's a couple ways. I mean, one is in the interview itself. You can do some situational testing. You can kind of say, okay, if this was happening, what would you do? What would be your answer? How would you deal with this? It gives you an outline, but it doesn't actually show you how they would operate in those situations. The only way you can actually really find that out is by saying, let's put this person in these situations. They've done some testing. We think they're okay. And let's see what actually happens. That means we got to pay them for a while, and we've got to see if they actually work out the way we think they will. It's a tough thing to do, particularly for senior positions. Mid-level, it's easier. But I'll tell you honestly, and I think we find this out throughout the business, we'll get somebody from another company, Hildebrand or somebody, and they'll say, I'm a senior consultant. And oh, by the way, they're not. They had that title. They stayed with the company long enough to get that title, but they never actually did their dues and learned the thing that they were supposed to learn. to actually show that kind of expertise. So it's a tough thing to deal with. It's a really tough thing to deal with. Got anything else, Carlos?
Well, thank you again for responding to our demo. So, guys, hey, ask away. We still have plenty of time. So now's the time. All right, Michael. There's another thing that I would personally like to ask you. Is when having soft. I mean, I'm sorry. Let me word my thoughts here because
Yeah,
it's a little
that's
complex.
okay.
And I still need some more caffeine in my brain because I haven't had that much, to be honest, today. So, okay, when we hear the term, when I hear the term soft skills, for some reason, the word soft has a soft feel to it, right? So it's like a very kind, gentle kind of thing. Now, are all soft skills necessarily good?
If they're done right, they should be. I mean, sure, you can do negotiation badly, which means make the other person really mad and just make them arrive at a decision that may be stupid. But that's not the right way to do negotiation. You can, you can communicate really badly, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a good outcome. So soft skills just means, from a point of view of saying bicycle riding is a soft skill, even though you might hit the ground really hard. It's something I can't write down and show you step by step how to do and have you do it successfully the first time you try. I can give you some pointers about balance and looking forward and all those kind of things. But again, that won't make you not fall off the bike. So soft skills are things that we have to learn through experience. And the way I learn it may be different than the way you learn it, Carlos. Because after all, we're two different people.
Right, exactly. Yeah, which it's not only excuse me, let me move it here. It's not only you and me. It's just not two people. It's 7 billion people in the world that are different, right? So it's kind of hard. Yeah, it's kind of tricky. I would say it's kind of tricky to find the right skills to build rapport with nearly everyone, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Go ahead.
No, well, what I was going to say is, in terms of using our soft skills or our rapport building capabilities, then I guess that we would probably benefit learning about EQ, right, or about emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. So how does, in terms of a company, technology companies, today's technology companies, software development companies, does emotional intelligence have anything to do with soft skills at all? What do you think?
It does, but I don't like it for some reasons because it kind of becomes a way to beat somebody, to say, you haven't done this or you haven't done that. When I first started doing this, I started doing it because my consulting career was just kicking off. It was after I had left the startup that I had worked with, and I decided I wanted to be wise and going to consult. Then the next question was, well, how do you do that? How do you convince people to do the right thing? How do you talk to people? How do you analyze their problems, help them deal with it, all those kind of things? I did some things because I felt as a person, I didn't have the public speaking skills I needed. I didn't have the rapport with people that I needed. So I went out and got into a television program.
Television?
Yeah, I had a national television program for 2 years in the U.S. We talked about rights. We talked about all kinds of things. I flew to LA every 2 weeks, did 2 shows back to back and came back. I mean, all of that kind of stuff. It was really scary for me. It scared the life out of me because I'm standing the first the first interview I had.
So you'll be okay after our DojoLIVE, right?
Yeah, I'll be better, folks. I'll be a lot better.
Yeah.
So the first interview I had was at a gay rodeo in LA. It's human rights. It's all those kind of things. It was for a good cause.
A gay rodeo.
But yeah, you talk about.
I'm going to save my comments for
another day. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, pushing yourself out there doesn't have to be just on the job. The point is, you can do it a lot of different places. After that 2-year gig, I went on and did public speaking. And by the way, that's how I ended up in Mexico, because I was speaking in seminars about this thing we call the internet at the Sheraton right next to the Angel there. And I did that for 2 or 3 different times, as well as speaking in Sweden, in London, in Washington, D.C., and around. I stuck myself out there and made myself do things that I was really uncomfortable trying. But I did it okay because I knew that doing that would help me move forward. You don't have to make those big moves. You don't have to jump off a cliff, but you have to push yourself forward. You have to have an idea that you want to do something better.
No, there you go. I was just thinking this gay rodeo thing swirling inside my head.
Yeah. Well, you haven't seen anything until you've seen that.
I can't imagine. Well, I've been to San Francisco, so I have an idea. Okay, guys, people in the audience again. Questions? Anyone? No more questions? Or we're only going to have them ask questions.
He's the only smart guy in the group. He's the only guy who's out there.
Yeah, he's definitely want to learn about soft skills. Okay, and is by the way, time management, is that a soft skill? How would you say?
Absolutely. And you know, it's not just a soft skill for you personally. It's a soft skill that you have to negotiate with the team and you have to work together on. And it's a really tough thing to do. Definitely time management is a soft skill, but it isn't just your soft skill. It's a skill that you as a team have to work together on. And every team goes through these stages. We talk about norming, storming, and forming, all of these different steps that we go through as teams that create a cohesive working team. It's one of those things you have to work out. It's one of those things you have to begin to work with, not only on your side, the 5-6 guys that you're working with, but also on the client side, so that we all work cohesively. We understand how to talk to Timok, and we understand, how to talk to this person. And yeah, it's exactly what you were talking about before. Those soft skills to get out of our kind of geeky idea of we can sit in the dark room and think up the next change to the world, and get out there and actually interact with the world.
Well, there you go. Thank you again. Let's see. I was putting together a list of topics that I personally wanted to ask you about, because it's needless to say it's related, right, to our industry. You mentioned we have talked about soft skills thus far, but the focus has been mostly like internal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna learn about soft skills. I'm going to apply the soft skills that I have or can acquire with my team, with my fellow co-workers. But what about soft skills when it comes to relationships or interactions with the client, on the client side, or with the clients? How important is it? Or because, for example, let me tell you something. If, let's suppose a soft skill that I consider to be important is to be assertive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I say to myself, yeah, I'm assertive. I'm an assertive type of guy. Everyone sees me as an assertive person. But what if being assertive is understood as something else or something different on the client side? What do we do? How do we react to that? If my assertiveness looks a little bit aggressive or is interpreted as an aggressiveness, or to a certain degree, how do we deal with that? Or, do we bend the rules, so to speak, and then forget about our soft skills that we learned in order to keep our business going? Or what should we put or place in balance? What should we sacrifice if using our soft skills leads eventually to a misunderstanding?
Well, I think, the first big thing is, and you talk about assertiveness, I don't really see that as a standalone soft skill. I mean, it has to be something used at the right point. In other words, used as a part of negotiation or used as a part of communication, those broader skills. And, there's some tricks that consultants learn to play in the larger game, which is I can lead a conversation entirely by questions and get it to end at the right time and get it to have the right conclusion entirely by questions. And you can do that by using yes or no, those binary questions and open-ended questions at the right time to drive conclusions, to bring out alternatives, to bring out answers. It's a skill, and it has to do with assertiveness because you have to know when to step forward and you have to know when to step back. And it also is part of negotiation, which is looking the other guy in the eye and saying, does this make sense? Are we moving forward or are you shutting me out? And that's something that takes a lot of experience and takes some real mistakes before you're able to do it successfully. You got to make some mistakes here. And one of the reasons I mentioned teams is I'm assuming that most of us in the conversation haven't done this for years. So it's something new to you. It's easier to start with people you know. But you mentioned the other point. Once we get comfortable doing it with our team, we have to be able to move forward to the client side. We have to be able to move forward to things that really make a difference both to the team and to the outcome of projects. And that's where the money hits the road. That's where we really make a big difference.
That's where the money hits the road. I kind of like that expression. It's
it's where we stop, just twiddling our fingers and we start moving forward. We start really making things happen. We start making the money the client is spending on us doing Agile, the money the client is spending on having us be able to interact in real time, even though we're sitting several hundred miles away. All of those kind of things really pay off. Why are we all sitting in the same meeting if we're just going to watch this later and say, oh, this is what they said, write it down?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, of course not. Which leads me to another point, right? We're working in the technology industry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, soft skills by nature have to do with humanity, what we are as humans, as individuals, as unique human beings. But for some people, sometimes the way that we relate to technology, the way we use it, sometimes kind of gets in the way of being able to work out these soft skills. For example, okay, we all have smartphones, tablets, laptops, and we're all connected at all times. There's the Internet of Things, there's wearables, there's a whole bunch of stuff right there, right? Okay, so, okay, and we're all carry it to, I don't know, maybe to a family or business meeting. We're all using these things. And one of the soft skills that we're supposed to be working on is human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Or so do you think that at some point the overuse of technology can backfire and damage our soft skills capabilities or not? Or is it going to be eventually it's going to break even, it's going to balance out? What do you think?
Oh, I think it does break even. I mean, I've seen a lot of this evolve from the ground up, and yeah, we reach points every once in a while where we say, you know what, I'm going to turn off Facebook and I'm going to walk away. I'm going to turn off my smartphone and I'm going to just leave it off all day. I'll have fits, but I'll keep doing it. And, all of those things are important to think about because, I mean, I agree. Sitting here, looking in your eyes, God.
There you go.
Makes a lot
Looking at the camera.
Makes a lot of difference in understanding what you're thinking, what's in the back of your mind. It's very hard for us as humans to have a poker face. It's actually really tough because that is a big part of how we communicate. What's on our face? It's the micro movements. It's all these things we hear about in the cop shows and everything that are really true. And we don't even think about. You know, when somebody smiles, we can interpret whether that is a real smile or a false smile. If somebody says, "Oh yeah, I'll see you later," we know whether that's sincere or they're just brushing you off. We instinctively know that. It's part of our development as humans. And being a part of that, I think, is critical. I think being able to interpret those things, being able to bring those things out and not say, "You just turned me off. I saw that." But being able to change up a little bit and saying, "Okay, now I'm going to say something that's going to bring Carlos back. I'm going to say his name," or something like that. That's the kind of thing that becomes important in personal relationships. You know, am I talking to somebody on the other side of the kitchen here, or am I talking to a guy that I'm looking at right here?
There you go. Okay. Thank you for your response again. Guys, I want to remind the audience that we're having a conversation with Michael Dunham, and he's the Vice President, Vice President of Services Engineering and Marketing Director. How do you pronounce that? I said SCIO at the beginning of the talk, but is it SCIO or is it CO? How do you pronounce
SCIO,
it?
as in
SCIO.
Spanish.
Okay, great, awesome. So,
SCIO as in Spanish. It's actually a Latin word. It means to know. Or to, but actually, we say it in the Spanish way. Now, of course, in the U.S., they see it without hearing us say it, and they say SCIO.
Right, and to be honest, I'm going to be totally honest here. At some point, I thought it was like an acronym, but now I know it's not. I hadn't really asked, but thanks for clarifying that part. So we're talking with Michael Dunham, Vice President of Services Engineering at SCIO, and we're talking about soft skills in software development specifically. All right, we have another question here.
From Timo.
Yeah. Who else?
Who else?
Who else, right? Right. When he says,
"Thank you, Timo. I like you a lot. I don't
definitely.
even know you, but I like you a lot."
There you go. All righty. When looking for soft skills, the list seems enormous, right? But are there some more important than others? Or do they depend on the core values of the company?
Yeah, they do depend on the core values of the company, because after all, we all know of companies that we've worked in or that we've got friends who work in who don't care at all who's sitting behind the keyboard. You know, you didn't punch enough buttons today, you're gone. And we don't, any of us want to work in those companies, but we know they exist, and we know that those situations exist where that's all that counts is, how many lines of code did you push out today? Good lines or bad lines, right lines or wrong lines. It just doesn't matter. But on the other hand, yeah, the list seems long, perhaps because it gets pushed a lot of different ways depending on the agenda of the person, which comes back to what you were saying, Timo. There are certain areas where companies want to focus, and that's what seems to happen. I'll tell you, you need to decide for yourself what's important, what you feel weakest in. But I think we can all agree that it all starts with communication. That if we can't communicate, it doesn't matter what soft skills you have. It doesn't matter what you do, because soft skills depend on being able to work in a world of people. And we may be able to analyze things wonderfully, and we may be able to think up great arguments and all those kind of things. But if we don't actually put them out in the world, we have no proof that they're real. We have no proof that they actually make a difference. Someone may have thought of a great answer to the whole climate change thing that's bothering us all. But if they haven't actually put it out there in front of the nations of the world and have the nations of the world, done the arguing to say, this is why it's okay and this is why you need to adopt it, it's just a good idea. That's all it is.
Excellent, Michael. I really appreciate it. We're about to wrap up the session, so it's either on the audience side, if you have any additional questions, or Michael, please, if you think that there's anything else you would like to share with our audience,
Uh,
please.
I'll just say quickly, you can find a discussion about this on blog.codev.com, BLOG dot SCIODEV.com.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's type it here so that
Okay,
our
yeah.
audience can. Actually, you can do it too if you wish. Just click on the upper left-hand side icon
Yeah.
and just type it in there so that our audience can copy it
Yeah.
without any errors or
Confusion.
anything. Yeah. So
There
there
it
you
is.
go. All right, blog is codev.com. So I'm sorry, Michael, you were saying about this blog. What's in there?
There's some things about agile development. There's some things about soft skills. We don't have a lot on it right now. I used to have hundreds of articles, but we've changed our direction a little bit. We were more of a SaaS company before. Now we've gone more into just our expertise as developers and looking at some of the larger projects we've worked on, some of the larger things we've worked with. That's so we have a little bit broader focus, but also a little bit more expertise focused.
Okay. Well, thank you again. All right, we're about to close the session. If there are no further questions on the audience side, then I think I'm going to start wrapping it up and thanking Michael one more time.
Thank you, Carlos.
Your time, your willingness, your experience, and your insights, and that's you and I are going to be in touch. Like I said, I need your postal address so we can send you some tokens of appreciation. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you, your audience, thank you, everyone. And I look
Stay
forward.
curious, everybody.
Stay curious. There you go. Curiosity, like he said, is a great soft skill that we all need in order to make progress in our professional endeavors. So, Michael, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Carlos.
Guys, look at the blog and let's keep the good work rolling. And see you next time, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.